Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 240. Happy Sunday, good morning, Hopefully your weekend was great. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their 3-day weekend here in Hawaii because we had Friday off because it was statehood day. Some people they don't really like that holiday. Um Especially when your state's been, especially when your home's been annexed. So, but I've been thinking about certain things, man. It's always interesting when people come to you with their issues. And there's a plethora of different things, right? And I just look at that and I think, okay, how much more can you put time into a situation where it's better just to leave it alone? And I'm not talking about ghosting, and I'm not talking about stop communicating. I'm not talking about blocking them. Just off rip, because to me that's always weird. It's like it's one thing if the conversation doesn't go anywhere. It's another thing when it's like shit naturally ran its course. Um, I think ghosting people, and that's just that's just a weak individual move. It's like, especially when especially when people are reaching out, whatever it is, because it's like I read a lot of shit on Reddit, and it's like a lot of these guys are just, it's mostly girls, you know, some guys, and like they talk about being ghosted and everything too, and I'm like, and the way I look at it, it's like, hey, they just weren't that into you, bro, and it sucks, and it does, it sucks being ghosted, it sucks, because your self worth is tied up into that, right? And then I read some shit, because I follow a bunch of sub pages like cerebral palsy and guys talk about dating and everything too, and I'm like, bro, um, it doesn't matter because it's like if people can't see past your disability, then that's on them, and that's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can, you can't force somebody to see your worth. You can't make somebody see who you are. If they just see your disability, then it's sad for them because they're missing out on a genuine person, right? And but getting back to what I said, man, ghosting people, cheating on people, having the same conversation over and over and over again. It's like, you know, I've never understood ghosting. I'm 36, turning 37. Ghosting's been around ever since I was in high school. And this is before we had cell phones. It's like one day somebody was talking to you, next time, the next day they weren't. And majority of the time, there's nothing wrong that you did. So that's the confusing part, or maybe people get scared and they let their bullshit, get the best of them. They let their insecurities get the best of them. But the one thing I don't understand, man, is like when people put energy into a situation and it's only them and they complain about it. I got a really good couple friends who are going through a similar situation, and I said, like, look, man, it's like I was telling them individually because they don't know each other. I said, like, look, how many times can you have the same conversation with somebody before you get tired of having the same conversation? You know, how many times can you deal with somebody who just jumps to conclusions, accuses you of doing X, Y, and Z, does all this extra shit, and in reality, it's like it's not even what you're doing. It's them, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And like that's the most weird thing, bro. Is like people will put effort into a situation and not realize that their effort is not being matched or met or not even met, and forget being matched. Um And it's like, and it's mostly just women who I talk to, and they say, yo, X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada. I'm like, okay, cool, but did you verbalize that though? They're like, what? Like, yeah, did you verbalize that? Did you like? Did you actually communicate that? Because recently I had a friend of mine. She had gotten back from a trip, and she simply wanted her boyfriend to, come see her the night that she got back into town. And I think she got back like at 10:30, 11 o'clock, or whatever it was, right? And mind you, it's not the distance of the drive, it's the time, right? Like, her boyfriend lives like 30 minutes away, And like I said, it's already late. It's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I guess she was under the assumption that he was gonna come over, but none of that shit was verbalized, right? And I said, "Yo, sis, what you like? I've known this girl since college. That's how far. That's how long we go back." And I said, "What you mad about?" And she's telling me the situation. I said, "Okay, cool. But did you verbalize that? Did you let him know?" Because I'm gonna tell you point blank. Period. It's like most men, very few of us are gonna pop up at your crib at that time of night, you know, unannounced, you know. And it's like if you want to see him, there's one great way to do it. Like, hey, you know, when I land tonight, can I see you? You know, I want to see you. I mean, not can I see you, I want to see you. Simply put, just say, yeah, like when I touch down, when I get back to my house, I want to see you. I hate this saying when girls say, oh, well, yeah, well, because I've had this happen to me. When they're like, you're talking to the girl, whatever it is, and then you ask her, like, hey, like, you want me to come over? And instead of her saying, yes, I want you to come over, yes, I want to see you, she says, only if you want to. Okay? Of course I want to, but I want to be wanted. It's the same thing. It's like, y'all women want to be wanted, and so do us men, man. It's like, stop thinking that, like, we can read your fucking mind, bro. Stop thinking that we know what the fuck you guys are thinking about, because we don't. And it's like, if you want to make it known, make it known. If you it's the same thing, man. It's like, you have to communicate, and a lot of people don't know how to communicate effectively. Or they think they know how to communicate this because they fucking talk so much. Yeah. And that's what that is, man. It's like, it's just so frustrating, right? Or then you got the women who just jump to conclusions, and after a while, like, us men get tired of dealing with it. You know, I had a buddy of mine go through the same thing, and he was like, bro, like, after a while, like, I'm tired of this shit. I'm like, because it's like, she's always assuming, she's always doing X, Y, and Z, and it's like, yeah, I mean, number one, when you assume, you make an asshole out of the both of us, you know, and when you assume, you're most likely fucking wrong, and now you look stupid, you know. I don't care what people say, man. It's like, when you assume, like, you make yourself look stupid. I'ma never assume X, Y, and Z. I'ma always ask questions, and then based off those answers, I'm gonna make my conclusion. It's like, I'm never gonna sit there and accuse somebody of cheating on me. No, I'm never gonna sit there and make assumptions. Oh, X, Y, and Z, or just because like you didn't pick up the phone. And majority of the time, it's women coming to me and telling me this shit, and like, they be like, oh yeah, but X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada. Well, I felt a certain way. I felt that you was with somebody else because you didn't pick up the phone. I'm like, oh, did you ever stop and think that I was busy? You know, did you ever stop and think that I had shit going on? You know? And lastly, I don't I don't condone cheating, man. I don't. I don't. You know, that's just something that I can't justify. I can't sit there and hear you out, you know. I don't care if you're in a committed relationship, whether it's boyfriend, girlfriend, or God forbid, a husband and wife. I don't understand that. The reason why I don't understand it is because it's not a mistake. You're making a choice. You know, you're making a choice to do that. You're making a choice to upend somebody else's world. You know, like that's not something that a responsible and adult does. You know, um, and I say that because I've known people who've had that problem for years, right? And it finally catches up to them, and then I'm like, man, it's like you've had this issue for a minute, bro. It's like I think it's best for you to sit by yourself and just figure out what the fuck, is going on. And this individual told me something that happened to him in high school, and I'm like, okay, I get that, I understand that, but man, that was again, this is a friend from college. I was like, bro, I was like, I understand that, I get it because we've all been left, you know, you know, majority, like we always think it's for somebody else, right? But majority of the time, believe it or not, people leave other people for themselves. You know, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, unless you out there just hopping on every available dick with you and every available box out there, is like most people will leave a situation for themselves. Now, how they do it is completely different. You know, like I said, like we've all been ghosted. We've all been like, made to question our worth and everything too. It's like, and hell, we may even miss the person. But what we miss is the facade of what they brought. We weren't dealing with the actual real person. And like that's the part that fucks people up. Because they're like, well, I did X, Y, and Z and everything else. And I'm like, bro, it's never gonna be enough for somebody who who doesn't have the same, self-esteem and self-confidence that you have. Man, I am a college graduate. I'm a former competitive bodybuilder. I'm nationally qualified at that. You know, I'm 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 working on goals and everything else that I have too. So it's like if I was to sit there and just listen to motherfuckers who tell me, oh well, like you can't do this or that because of your disability, I would get nothing done. You know, um, there was a point in time where I struggled with reading. You know, but I took it upon myself to read every day, to look up definitions. I still do it till this day. Like if I'm reading a book and I don't know what the word means, I'll literally stop and I'll Google the word, and to find out the definition. And I'll lock that way in my brain to understand. Like, okay, cool. Like this is what that means. You know, and I may mispronounce shit because of my speech. My slurry speech, but at the same time, I can hold my own in conversations, man. It's like motherfuckers can't look at me and be like, well, he's stupid because the X, Y, and Z, because look how he walk. I'm like, nah, nigga, I'm probably smarter than you. And you better watch your girl around me, too, because I'm going to take her, too. you know? But, yeah, man, it's like getting back to what I was saying earlier. You can't justify cheating, bro. Man or woman, whatever it is, it's like you can't. And like that's the sad part. Is like you end up, just making a messy situation messier, and it's like I'm not gonna put this individual's dirt out, in the street, anything like that. But it's like, and I told him I was like, man, it's like It's like you say you want all this shit, but look at what you doing, bro. And then that's when this individual told me about what happened in high school, and I'm like, well, how he was dating somebody, and the girl left him. I'm like, okay, but that was damn near 20 years ago, bro. Like, what does that got to do with you as a grown man? You know, yeah, does it suck? Yeah, 100%. You know, being left or just having somebody run, you know, it does, but that has nothing to do with you. That has everything to do with them. And if you can't figure that out, bro, then I don't know what to tell you. You know, and I just look at that and I think to myself, you know, well, that sucks. That's horrible. You can't keep breaking somebody else's heart simply because you don't want to get it together. You know, you can't keep doing that because that person that you keep doing that to deserves a lot better than what you're giving. You don't get to be the villain in somebody's story and the victim, you know? And I don't care how people try to justify it. I don't care how people try to, spin it. It's like end of the day, you made a choice and you broke those vows. You know, I've seen people get divorced because they got cheated on, get remarried, and do the same shit to their spouse, their new spouse, that happened to them. And yet they want to sit there and play victim. And it's sad, it's pathetic, and there's really nothing you can do to justify that, or there's really nothing you can say to that's gonna justify that. And whether it's a turn and burn situation, like those situations suck, but everything comes to an end. I don't care what people say. I don't care how they try to spin the situation. It's like, nah, it's like when you cheat, when you ghost, when you block and there's no reason to block, that says more about you than anything else. And I think a lot of people just don't understand how detrimental that does to somebody's psyche. They don't understand the process that people go through. Hell, I've seen people commit suicide because of that. Well, not seen people commit suicide, but I've seen, I've had people that I know, who are really, really good people go through something fucking traumatic and they commit suicide just based off that situation. And at the end of the day, it sucks. It sucks because it's like you end up in a situation where you know for a fact that you shouldn't have been with this individual. You know for a fact that everything played out the way it should have played out, but at the same time, you're sitting there and you're waiting for something to get better, and it doesn't get better. And in regards to people who lack the self-confidence and the self-esteem, it's nobody else's job to build you up. It's nobody else's job to sit there and consistently and constantly counsel you in the same thing. You can go to therapy, you can do the X, Y, and Z, and you can still be fucked up. Like, I know people who've been to therapy because they got cheated on, and it's like, yo, how can you go to therapy for this shit but not even use a tool that they gave you? Or it's like, I've known people who got cheated on, and it's like they go to therapy to talk about their issues, and when they leave therapy, all they talk about is how the other person is, how the other person is that. I'm like, why don't you talk about your lack of boundaries? Why don't you talk about how you? I had somebody tell me once, I'm trying to establish boundaries, but it's difficult. Well, the other person's making it difficult. I'm like, no, it's not the other person, it's you. Because if you're trying to do something, you're not doing nothing at all. I'm a firm believer in that. I don't care what people say. I don't care what what type of verbiage they use. If you're trying to do something, it means you're doing nothing at all. Because if you really wanted to establish a boundary, trust and believe that boundary would be set. you know. And like I'm gonna wrap this episode up with the with the story. Um, I had a friend of mine. Really, she was a good friend of mine. We was friends for 6 7 years, and how I knew her was through my high school classmate was her fiance, and and so in the process of us getting to know each other, because I went to high school with her fiance at the time. Um, he ended up cheating, ended up doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, and we happened just to be talking, and she was in my DMs, and like we was laughing, joking, X, Y, and Z, and and the topic of her ex came up, and she told me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm sorry to hear about that, but then but then the conversations got more frequent, they got a lot more frequent, you know, and nothing happened physically between us, intimately between us, because it just didn't get that far. But like there was definitely a point in time where it was something that was blossoming into something bigger than what it currently was. And I remember when we would always go out, random strangers would stop us and they would ask us, "Hey, how long you guys been going out? You guys are a beautiful couple." And like we're looking at each other like, okay, this is kind of weird because like we're just friends. I literally told her it's like no, like when people would say that, I'd be like, no, like we're just friends. We're just really good friends. I'm like, okay, And majority of the time that people strangers would ask us this shit, it was girls, it was other women, you know, and other women would come check me out, right? I'm like, okay, whatever, and and so anyway, so all that pops off, and I remember asking her like, oh, okay, like, oh, okay. Look, I told her like, hey, I don't know where you see this going, but what are we doing? Because it's like if if strangers are telling us that we're a good looking couple, or if they're asking us how long we've been dating, maybe we should kind of give this a shot, you know. It's out, just out of curiosity. And she wasn't interested, whatever it was, and she wasn't. And I handled that situation poorly. Not that I, not that I don't, not that I didn't handle the rejection part. What it is. She told me that she wasn't, that she wasn't interested in dating and this and this and that. And there was this one particular dude who she ended up dating, and I couldn't stand the guy because